I want us to bring back a particular application because one of the things that we talked about earlier, the last time we were working with the UCI, was we brought in the idea of UCI variables. And I told you the story of having a very common situation of deploying systems and installing it with certain labels and names, and then at some point, the client wanting to change that name. And one of the pain points of that really easy process is that it takes this long to solve it, but then it takes this long to actually apply the fix. Meaning, how long does it take to change a label? Approximately 5 seconds. How long does it take to actually get it to a technician who can drive it over, who can then connect at the appropriate times and work all of that administrative scheduling out to do all of that? That used to take hours, and it was a beating. We're going to come back to the idea of UCI variables, and we're going to show you in real time just how wonderful Reflect can make life for us when we use things like UCI variables. So instead of hard coding our strings into our array of friendly names, we are going to create UCI variables so that we can make those labels configurable. Right? That's one of our key goals, is trying to make the code configurable. So let's come back to variables. We are going to create 6 variables for the 6 possible inputs on our NV32. 6. Let's rename them friendly graphic 1, and this one is going to be friendly graphic 2. This is going to be friendly graphic 3. This is going to be friendly HDMI 1, friendly HDMI 2, and friendly HDMI 3. Once again, we're going to leave these as strings. Again, this is an application, a particularly useful one, a real world scenario of where this whole approach is really super handy. So let's come back down to our spot here and let's think for a moment. What do we want our array of friendly names to be? Do we want them to be these hard-coded strings? We don't. We actually want them to be whatever's in those UCI variables, because the UCI variables are the things that are configurable externally. So let's update this to say UCI.variables.friendly HDMI1.string. And the second one is going to be UCI.variable.friendly HDMI2.string. And the third one is going to be UCI.variable.friendly HDMI3.string. And then lastly, UCI.variable.friendly graphic1.string. And before we get too far down the road, let's think about this, because we just went through this very scenario when we were thinking about func established connection. We needed to hang up the phone and pick back up the phone every time we changed that IP address and port. We needed to update all of that stuff internally. We're going to need to do the same thing, Nate.
We sure are.
We can learn some lessons, like we learned that lesson in the last video. We even, from here, we can write a function that's going to update the choices. Let's write the base file here, the base function. Function func set choices. And I'm going to open and I'm going to close it. And so let's think about it. What all needs to happen in func set choices? Well, obviously, all the things that can change. And one of the things that's obvious that's going to change when we change something in the UCI variable is we're going to change our definition of the array of friendly names. So let's move it into func set choices. What else is going to change when we change one of those UCI variables? the list box itself. We need to reset the dot choices. So let's also move the loop that updates the dot choices into our function as well. And when do we need to run this function? We need to run func set choices at startup. When else? Now, for those of you who are thinking, we have func init, maybe we should do it there. The answer in the long run is yes, for sure. That's where you should do it. But for now, remember, we're going to write our code linearly, and we're going to leave it. It's not going to be quite optimized and cleaned up as much as you're going to want it to be in the end, but it's going to be very linear for like how we taught the class. So we're going to leave it like that. So when do I want to do it? I want to do it at startup, but I also want to do it every time we change one of those UCI variables. So what does it mean to change a UCI variable?
We got 6 different event handlers that all got to call this function?
You got it. 6 different event handlers that all have to call this function. So let's bang them out together. UCI. Remember, make use of autocomplete. It actually makes it go pretty quick.
We got to do this with a montage now. Start the montage.
Okay, and we're back. All right, let's hit go and let's give this a shot. We start off with empty strings because that's what we put in there. So let's update these. Graphic 1 needs to be what? Needs to be logo. And notice what happens. When we enter it, it pops in exactly where it's supposed to be. Graphic 2 and graphic 3 we're not using, so we're going to leave them as empty strings. Friendly HDMI 1 though is going to be laptop 1, and HDMI 2 is going to be laptop 2, and HDMI 3 is going to be the wireless. And now they all pop in. And look at that. That is perfectly working. And if I decide to change my mind, I can now come right here and I can change this. Maybe we want to call this submersive. And when we do that, it automatically updates everything right there in the system. And now when I make that choice, it now says that it's immersive. But let's come back to this for a moment, because one of the reasons that we are choosing to do it this way is so that we can make this thing easily reconfigurable. And obviously, we can make it very easily reconfigurable if you go on site and you're live and you are connected with Designer. You can make those choices super easy. But one of the things that we really want to make sure that you see and understand is that when you adopt methodologies like this, then you can begin to leverage the power of Reflect. UCI variables are visible in Reflect in the same way that they are visible in Designer software or they're visible in Core Manager if you're on the network. You can even be off-prem and connect to these things and make these choices. The whole rest of the course has been done in emulation, but we are going to take a moment to actually push this to live software, to a live NV32 that is connected to Reflect in the cloud so that you can see these changes happening in real time. So there we go. We are pushing to the core.
All right, so Jeff is up and connected to a core that is connected to the internet and thus up to Reflect. I am going to go to my Reflect account right here. This are the various sites that I'm in control of. One of them is the training system. I'll dial down into that site, and in here I can see all of the cores that I manage from my training site. One of them is this one right here, Controlling UCI Training Series. This is what Jeff just pushed to. I'll go into that core. From here, I can look at the UCIs. I can see the various UCIs available to me, his class UCI or the emulator UCI. I'll click the class UCI. There is his screen loading up. And right next to that is a pullover called variables. If I open that up, then I can see and get access to renaming any of these. Now, I could be anywhere in the world, and I could choose to rename these appropriately to the only thing that all of them should be saying, which are just 4 different options, all of them Nate. That's what we want. That's going to be the least confusing for the end user, so they know that there's no way they can misclick something. So no matter what they click, it's going to end up with the right thing. While I'm here, it's probably for the best if I rename all of his tabs of his UCI also to be a little bit more appropriate, a little bit more descriptive. I think that's the way we want to go. This is looking pretty good to me. And we can see that happening on his screen too. Those are all updated, not just here in Reflect, but live up to the internet, back down again, and across the room.
Yes,
a couple clicks.
Across the room. And look, no hands, Mom. It absolutely updated all by itself. Well, actually, Nate did it.
I'll put some of those back for you, just so they continue to know the difference between your design and my design.
Okay. Great. I'll fix all of those.